new taxes and fees, very business unfriendly,
Right.
even citizen unfriendly with the amount
Exactly.
of aggressive taxes. Yeah. On day one, under the Hogan Rutherford administration, what taxes and or fees would you look to repeal and get rid of, and how would you change the business climate to bring
Right.
those businesses and the citizens back to Maryland?
Well, it's a great question. It's the most important part of our whole campaign is those issues that you're talking about. And we mentioned the businesses we lost. You just mentioned the citizens we lost. You know, our group, Change Maryland, did a taxpayer exodus study that showed we've had a mass exodus larger than any state in the Mid-Atlantic region and one of the worst in the entire nation. We lost 31,000 taxpayers out of the state in the past 7 years that took with them $1.7 billion a year out of our economy. So, you know, the taxes have affected everybody at every level. It's cost us businesses, jobs, and taxpayers at an alarming rate. It's a really tough. You can't immediately turn all this stuff around, and we've got a terrible business reputation. We're at the bottom of the 50 states in most rankings economically, no matter what other outside group is taking a look at us. And it can't just magically turn around overnight, but we've got to start to change direction. And under the Hogan-Rutherford administration, on day one, you're going to have two people now running the government who are focused on the three things: jobs, middle-class taxpayers, and restoring Maryland's economy. That's our entire focus. We're going to immediately let people know that Maryland is now open for business again. You know, when you go to Virginia, Boyd just mentioned all the jobs and buildings popping up in the Dulles, corridor. When you go across it to Virginia, there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Virginia. We're open for business." It's just an attitude of we're welcoming you. We want the job creators to come here and create jobs. Our unemployment has doubled in Maryland over the past 7 years. 120,000 Marylanders have lost their jobs. That's what we're talking about. When you don't have the job creators and they're all fleeing and they're refusing to come because of these taxes, it doesn't just affect the business owners. It affects all those people who've lost their jobs and all that money that comes out of our economy. So, on day one, the attitude's going to change. On day one, we're going to appoint an entire new cabinet made up of people who have real-world experience in the private sector, and their number one mission is to say, how can we make Maryland a more business-friendly state so we can create more jobs? And, basically, this is a simple solution to the problem. The simple solution is, if I'm sitting in that desk as governor and something comes across my desk that doesn't make it easier for Maryland taxpayers and businesses to stay in Maryland, or doesn't help attract more families and more businesses to want to come to Maryland, I'm going to veto it. I mean, that's a simple but very effective rule. We've got to get the government under control spending-wise before we can just eliminate all these taxes. I mean, you can't just say, as some people have said, we're going to roll back all the taxes. Well, that's ludicrous. You can't do it that way. We've got an onerous tax structure where we're taxed worse than almost any state in the country. They've added 70-some taxes, fees, and tolls increases since they've been there, and we've got to start rolling it back. But first, we have to get the spending under control. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Right.
And in this tough economy, as people are, making tough decisions and tightening their belts, the state government has increased spending by $10 billion. Last year, the National Governors Association said we increased spending more than 46 other states, that only 3 states in the country increased spending the way Maryland did. So we've got to stop increasing spending by $1.5 billion every year. We've got to, and this is why Boyd mentioned earlier, he's not a politician. He didn't really ever envision running for office. I'm not a politician either. I run a small business. I picked him as a running mate because of his tough management experience. And, sometimes lieutenant governors don't have a lot of real responsibility. That's not going to be the case in this administration. We discussed this at length.
Yeah.
I see this as a partnership where we are working together every day to hands-on manage that government and try to make every agency and every department of state government run as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible, and watch every dollar as if it were our own. So that we've got to get the spending under control and then start looking at which of these taxes can we roll back, and it's got to be done.
Yeah. Can I mention one tax though?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's the whole rain tax, the stormwater management fee, as it's officially called. I think all of us realize that something has to be done with stormwater management. that is a challenge. It's not necessarily just the bay, but it affects the infrastructure and a lot of other issues. The problem is, and I had this discussion with some people that I know quite well who are very much save the bay type of people, environmentalists, is that why couldn't that funding come from existing revenue sources? Like you said, it's the 70th tax. You know, why not the others? We already pay sewer taxes in most jurisdictions in the state. There have been fees associated with cleaning up the bay that are part of that sewer tax and others. So why is it that you need this additional revenue source from areas that no one has ever planned for? The homeowners, the apartment dwellers, the property owners, this parking lot out here, the developer of this parking lot never planned to pay thousands of dollars a year because there's runoff of water that comes off this parking lot. So it's looking at those types of things and just the quick decision that people make in Annapolis that say, we have an issue, okay, let's tax something else. Let's tax something to pay for that versus looking internally at, you know, where is the current money going and how is that being spent, and is it being spent wisely?